for the LEAP Indiana Programming Committee, and Rachel Kartz is my other co-chair. So we are thrilled to see everyone here today. And just for your reference, we are recording these sessions and we will put them on the LEAP Indiana resource page for faculty around the state to view. There were a few folks that asked if we were recording because they were unable to attend our session today with conflicts in their schedule. So welcome to our fourth Monday coffee hour session for the academic year 21-22. We're so thrilled that you could join us. We are going to kick off this series with a presentation on inclusive programming and a certificate that was developed at Marian University. And so we're thrilled to ask that Mona Curie and Michael Slavkin join us from Marian University and talk to us about how they've developed their program. And then they'll save some time at the very end that will allow us to ask some questions, maybe get some further insight into some of the things that they've actually been doing. So thank you all for being here today. And I will monitor the chat as Mona and Michael get started with their session. So thank you all.
Thank you so much, Molly. I really appreciate it. And thanks to all of you for being here today. You're taking time out of your day to listen to us say stuff, and that's awesome. I really appreciate that. And I'm really grateful. We're both really grateful to be invited today to talk to you about the inclusive certificate. So I'm going to kick it off, and then Dr. Slavkin's going to talk, and he'll interject. Feel free to interject whenever you want to, Michael. And he's going to talk about some stuff that we've more recently developed. But I'm going to kick it off with the Level 1 Inclusive Certificate. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. So all of you should see my PowerPoint. Is that what you're seeing? Excellent. Okay. So the inclusive certificate that we created was sort of birthed from this learning experience framework that we developed several years ago in partnership with several faculty and staff. And basically, the learning experience framework was a way for us to ensure that courses were consistent with the types of learning experiences that students encountered. And we also wanted to make sure that there was a really solid way to integrate the Franciscan values into course curricula. And so we got together with some faculty and staff and put our heads together, and we decided that courses, course curricula and the course experience, the learning experience for students should be inclusive, impactful, and integrated. And if you want to learn more about what that all means, we do have a link here to more information about that framework. But the other reason we developed the framework is because we wanted something that was really going to be helpful to guide the Center for Teaching and Learning on campus as to what types of programming beyond sort of our standard offerings that we could offer for faculty in a sort of organized, integrated way that was really supporting faculty and students. And so that was kind of the purpose behind the learning experience framework. And we decided to start with the inclusive side of the triangle with the types of offerings that we were going to do and sort of the emphasis and push with this learning experience framework. So with what we decided to do with that inclusive side of the triangle is we decided, okay, this is what the CTL is going to emphasize for this academic year. And we wanted a way to actually incentivize faculty to come to the programming. We actually have really good turnout from faculty to our offerings, and especially when we have new offerings, there's always a good set of faculty that come to those. But we wanted to have reach beyond just a lot of our standard faculty that come to our stuff. So we thought, okay, let's offer a certificate. Originally, we were focused on faculty, But as we started doing this more and more, word of mouth kind of spread, and we realized that a lot of staff and departments and different offices were also interested. And we had certain department heads coming to us and say, hey, I want all my staff to be taking this. And so we really kind of shifted it to be faculty and staff related. And so it was open to both. And basically it was attendance to these workshop offerings that was a part of the requirements of the certificate. And then to end the certificate, to be eligible for the certificate, you had to submit a reflection at the end as to which workshops you attended and how this sort of impacted you. And we'll take a look at all of the specifics for this. So at the time we were and we still are a very small office, but at the time we were a small office of 3. And so it was really important to us to create solid partnerships so that we could offer a variety of workshops. We didn't want just a few workshops here and there. We wanted to have a wide variety for our faculty and staff to choose from. And so we partnered with our 21st Century Scholars. We also have a Unity Center, which is basically a diversity center or multicultural center. We partnered with them. The Peace Learning Center here in Indianapolis was a partner. And then we also partnered with faculty and staff around campus to facilitate certain offerings. So the specifics of the requirements, basically you needed to attend 4 of the offerings. And that was one of the reasons why we wanted to have such a wide variety. And one of the offerings had to be about implicit bias. And so we made sure that there were several of the events that were specifically about implicit bias or referenced implicit bias throughout. And then you were to submit that reflection, and we'll look at what those reflection questions are in a moment. So let's take a look at the types of variety that our small little CTL was able to pull off with our offerings. And so every August, we do our Tools for Teaching conference. And we decided to make that August Tools for Teaching about inclusive pedagogy. And we invited Kevin Gannon to speak during that event. And so that is actually very widely attended. Faculty are really highly encouraged to attend that August event. And so if you attend, and staff are allowed to attend as well, they're always invited. And so if you attended that event, boom, right there, there's one event that then counted toward that inclusive certificate even before the academic year started. And then we had a couple here. We've got the microaggressions workshop and tunnel of oppression event. And both of those were offerings from 21st Century Scholars. And they typically offered those to students, but they tweaked those in order to make them appropriate for faculty and staff. And then we did chapter discussions with Teaching to Transgress by Bell Hooks. And so every couple weeks, we had a facilitator who would just discuss one of the chapters, and the participants that signed up for that particular event would just read along the different chapters, and then you'd come all together and discuss the chapter and the implications within the classroom and the university as a whole. In addition, we partnered with the Unity Center, and one of the offerings that we had multiple times in the semester is the Cultural Understanding Foundations offering. And the director of the Unity Center taught that one. And then the Peace Learning Center was an important part of the certificate. And we actually still partner with the Peace Learning Center, and we still have them do their implicit bias workshop, which is a 4-hour-long workshop where they really kind of do a deep dive into implicit bias and what does that mean? What does that look like? Do you have bias? How do you know? It's a very interesting workshop, and we offered that a couple times a semester. Contracted them out, and then we still contract them out and offer that during our new faculty orientation. So all of our faculty get that one when they onboard with Marian University. In addition, we did book club discussions. And so the center, we always do book clubs every semester. And we just dedicated the book club to books about inclusion or diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so we did the book Blind Spot in the fall semester, and then that Guide for Sustaining Conversations on Racism, Identity, and et cetera, in that spring semester. And so it's a little bit more casual. We didn't meet multiple times to discuss the book. Typically what we do is we purchase 30 books. And so the first 30 people to sign up and get the book, they get the book for free. They're to read the book. And then we come together a little bit toward the end of the semester. And we have 2 hours where we sit together, we get into groups, we discuss, usually lunch is served. And it's a good time. It's a way to kind of come together and just sort of communicate with faculty maybe that you haven't seen for a while, eat some lunch, and talk about a good book. Another easy way that we included sessions is those Magna Publications 20-minute mentors. A lot of times they have series that you can purchase. And so they have an intercultural competence series, and there were 3 or 4 20-minute mentors to that series. And so we just invited people to either bring lunch. We specifically had this near the campus cafeteria. And so you could purchase lunch at the cafeteria and then come on by and eat lunch, watch the 20-minute mentor about intercultural competence, and then afterwards discuss how this impacts you specifically or inside the classroom. Also, we have a tilt workshop that is about 90 minutes long that I offer every semester, transparency in learning and teaching. And what we do is we ask faculty to bring an assignment with them that they would like to make modifications to. And we use the tilt template to make that assignment more transparent. And if you aren't aware of tilt, I highly recommend that you look that up. It was a large national study that showed that just a few small tweaks to your assignments to make them more transparent really helps in terms of equity and learning and sense of belonging and all sorts of good stuff. And so that tilt workshop is one that we continue to offer, but was offered more often during that certificate process that year. We also did Read Wednesdays, and this is where we ask the help of various faculty and staff around campus. Do you have something that you really that speaks to you in terms of inclusiveness, whether it be an article or a journal or whatnot? And then if so, we'll post that event, and the participants that want to attend, they can read that article and then come together and you can facilitate sort of a discussion about that or an activity. And then in addition to that, we kept an eye out for any external events that really were about inclusion and diversity and equity. And there happened to be a handful of external events held in other places that we thought worked well for the inclusive certificate. And so we made those eligible for people to attend those and count toward the certificate. Okay. I'm just checking in, Molly. Was there anything that anybody said in the chat that I should address at this point? Okay, perfect. All right, so those were the types of offerings, and I actually didn't list everything, but one of the things that I want to, let me go back. One of the things I want to point out is that our small little CTL of 3, we were able to pull this off with those partnerships, but also because a lot of it was just very simple, straightforward stuff, doing chapter discussions, having book club discussions, doing those Read Wednesdays or including those external events, really easy, straightforward ways to diversify our types of offerings and allow faculty and staff to really have a lot of choices as to what they could attend. And I think it really helped with the popularity of the certificate program to have that many events. Okay, so then after the faculty and staff attended the 4 different events, then they were to answer reflection questions. And we just had 3 simple questions for them to answer. How does implicit bias impact us, the people with whom we interact in our work? How did the events you attended reveal your own potential biases and how they manifest day to day? And then they were to pick one of these 4 from one of these 4 bullet points. How do you plan on being more inclusive, or how do you plan on modifying an area of your course or within your department to be more inclusive and to be more aware of that implicit bias that's occurring? And we didn't have like a stringent guidelines as to how these questions should be answered. We kind of left that open. And basically, if the questions were answered and it really seemed like there was some thought that was put into it, then that counted toward the certificate and the person would be awarded the certificate. But we didn't want it to be this sort of stringent, you have to answer it in these ways. Because we didn't want, first of all, we didn't want to squelch creativity, and we wanted to make sure people were submitting authentic, genuine reactions to the workshops, but also with a small, how small our CTL is, we didn't really have the capacity to kind of go back and forth and have people correct things and then resubmit and all that. And so if they really seemed like they made an effort, then we went ahead and said, okay, great, you get the certificate. And we got really awesome responses from people, really thoughtful, genuine, responses with depth. And so just some themes here that we received, some of the answers: there will always be room to grow and recognize my own biases. That was a big theme that we received from people. I still have further to go. So recognizing that implicit bias is out there, and I knew that, but I still have further to go in terms of, XYZ. Also, people who were aware that they had biases, but weren't necessarily aware of how deeply ingrained they were and how they really affected day-to-day interactions. And just general awareness. I'm noticing I'm more aware now of my biases, and that allows me to make corrections to those types of thoughts and just how they were changing things. I will strive to be more sensitive and aware of power dynamics between my students and myself. So really good stuff that we were seeing from people. And it really helped us to see, okay, yeah, we are actually we're making a difference here. It was really neat to see. So logistically, if you were to carry this out on your own, I thought that it was nice to have a slide here that talked about some of the logistics, how we were able to carry this off. So we've got the live whale calendaring system that we use at Marian University, and it was really key. I mean, it's a key tool for us because of all of our offerings, but it was super duper key during this time when we were having this wide variety of stuff toward the inclusive certificate. So we actually had people register for the certificate through that live whale system. We created an inclusive certificate event that people could then sign up for. But then we were able to easily create events in that live whale calendaring system and tag them so that there was a specific tag on events that counted toward that inclusive certificate. And then you could use that tag, and then a link would come up for those items specifically tagged that way. So then you could simply share a link with all of the events that counted toward the certificate. And then others could create events and tag it as well. So live whale was key. We also used Qualtrics in order to receive those submissions of their reflections. And in addition to getting their reflection question answers, we also got their campus address so that we could mail them the certificate once they were completed. In terms of materials, we just needed to buy that certificate paper, envelopes to mail out to people. We used Excel to keep track of everybody, all the participant completions. And we used our monthly newsletter to advertise all the events that we were doing throughout the academic year. And then I heavily relied on my student worker. I recruited her to really help out in terms of creating those live whale calendar items. She was also the one that would kind of do an initial screen of the submissions toward the certificate, and then would carry out the complete, filling out the certificate and sending it to the various people. So she had a lot of work on her hands that year. It was very helpful. So that was kind of our level one, creating inclusive experiences, but we didn't want to stop there. We didn't want it to be sort of this experience and then, okay, we've done that, so now we're all good with implicit bias, right? No. And we didn't want to stop there. We wanted to continue the conversation, and our faculty, it was very aware to us based on the popularity that our faculty and staff were really interested and hungry for this type of programming. And so we continued the conversation, and we relied on faculty at Marian University to expand the inclusive level one inclusive certificate to other offerings. And I'm going to pass it off to Dr. Slavkin at this point, because he was very much a part of the level 2 and level 3 that we have here.
Thanks, Mona.
Thanks.
So as Mona shared, yeah, the faculty really bought into the process. I was new here at Marian last year and participated in the experience of going through training, and then worked on my inclusivity certificate, and just felt like this was connecting a lot with both my teaching and my practice with students, and wanted to sort of see, was there a way that I could give back, and found out that there were several faculty who had been working toward the development of a few additional practices. And so one of the additional things that our Center for Teaching and Learning does is connects with our assessment directors on campus, and created an assessment grant where faculty could get small stipends or small grants to basically extend our work and look at something on campus related to assessment. And so what I and 3 other faculty, the director for the Unity Center, the director of the social work program, and the director of the Masters of Counseling program, came together and basically said, could we create in kind of a Rachel Cargill 30-day activity, something that faculty and staff could have access to that would extend this process. And so what we did was we created what we basically titled the Marian Pledge, which we used our Canvas, our distributed learning site here at Marian, and basically created a 30-day curriculum that looked at various aspects of anti-bias work. So each week sort of had an influence or a focus, and from student information to power differentials to race, gender, ethnicity, religious difference. And what we did was we spent the spring and early summer creating that pledge. The pledge actually went live this August, and to date we've had about 70 people go through that experience. It is a self-contained curriculum, so faculty and staff can basically log on to Canvas as members of our learning community. They can have access to all that material. They go through it per their leisure, and there are certain things that they can fill out. But as Mona said, I didn't want to be the one kind of reading all this stuff. I know she didn't want to be the one reading all this stuff. But the nice piece is there are check-in points where faculty actually can submit weekly kind of progress notes as they go through this. And surprisingly, they've been putting a lot of effort and a lot of engaged time into the process. And so we both get to see those comments, just like I do with students submitting their homework assignments. I get these notifications in my inbox on Canvas about the work that they do. And I find it refreshing to just hear how this is making a difference in their teaching and in their personal lives. And so that's really level 2. We're continuing that work, and even though this was the expansion of plans for last year, our hope is that this year Center for Teaching and Learning will continue to kind of let us play and continue this work. Our hope is that we create some learning communities throughout the campus made up of faculty and staff who can continue this work, continue to do training, and basically, I think the brilliance of both Mona and then Mona and my boss, who is Dr. Elizabeth Osika. She's the assistant, the assistant dean of basically teaching and learning on campus, assistant provost, excuse me, of teaching and learning on our campus. So she's Mona's direct boss, but then all the faculty. She just has an amazing outlook as to, it's like if faculty say they want to be involved, she's like, yeah, go do that. Let's make it possible. And so I feel like we're really blessed. We're really encouraged to continue this work. It feels very grassroots. And I think the power of Mona and the power of working with Liz is that they're like, yeah, let's keep going. Let's keep doing this. And so we are working with a smaller group of faculty over the course of this year to continue this process, to create some learning communities, and just really try to create a more inclusive setting on our campus. So in just considering everything that we've been doing, it's a lot of behind the scenes sort of process, I think. Just considering, I mean, especially for Mona, and I'll let Mona jump in. I've really been involved at the tail end of this as a faculty member, but greatly appreciating the opportunity to have these grassroots efforts involved. I think if you go to your faculty and you simply offer up the opportunity for them to be engaged and involved, you would be stunned at the number of them who really see this work as powerful. And the possibilities that exist from it. Marian is not necessarily, I think it's like every other small liberal arts college, perhaps in the state of Indiana. We are not necessarily the most inclusive state in the union, but we have caring, dedicated professionals who are working hard to help and meet our students where they are, and staff. And the key is, how do we do that work in a meaningful and authentic way? So Mona, do you want to talk any more about the logistics or scheduling challenges or anything like that?
Yeah, sure. Just, it was a simple, straightforward approach to doing this inclusive certificate. And we definitely worked hard to bring in those partnerships to make it easier for our CTL. But just know that if this is something that you plan on doing for yourself, that there is a lot of time-consuming pieces that went into it. Particularly when my student worker was out, off for the summer, I took over that part. And so there was a lot of answering questions where people, maybe they didn't quite understand how the certificate worked, or they wanted to see if an event counted toward it. So there was a lot of questions that were, my email went up, and just logistics in terms of, just a distribution of the certificates, getting those out in a timely fashion, reviewing the submissions of the reflections. And so there is a time-consuming part to all of this. And so if you have a student worker, leverage your student worker and, get that done with them if possible, or to be able to know that there is some time that you will have to set aside to do some of the background pieces. So I think that's all that we really have to say about the certificate as a whole. And so we would be very happy to answer any questions that you might have.
So Mona, would you prefer that we simply unmute and ask, or would you like folks to systematically raise their hand and we can call upon them? What would be your preference?
Whatever. I don't. If you want to unmute, I think there's a small enough group here today that unmuting and asking is great. Or if you want to type in the chat, that's fine too. If you don't, if you're eating something and you don't want to talk because you got a mouthful, that's fine.
Excellent.
Would it be okay for me to jump in?
Absolutely.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tanya Said. I work at Ball State University. And so my question is very particular to my situation. I'm actually a director of development for our College of Communication, Information, and Media. And I'm leading the effort within the Ball State University Foundation where I work to helm the new Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, which will be primarily focused on personal growth and maybe some internal systems or other needs that we end up identifying. So my question regarding the certificate is how much were professional staff or all staff actually involved, or was it strictly a faculty program? Because what I'm wondering is how to present this to my colleagues in our own Office of Inclusive Excellence at Ball State.
Sure. So we originally were making it very faculty focused just because faculty, for the CTL faculty is more of a focus for us. We emphasize faculty professional development. But we had, I would say it was close to half of the people that completed the certificate ended up being staff actually. And what happened is that word of mouth started happening, and we had directors of various offices that would hear about this and they would say, okay, I want all of my staff to do this. This is awesome. And so it was really helpful. And I encourage, if you're trying to figure out how to get staff to do it, go to those department heads and say, hey, this is going to be really useful in terms of helping to change culture. And that can really, depending on the person, that can really make it so that they say, hey, let's just all do this. And so we had entire departments that would just end up doing the inclusive certificate. And so that's when we kind of shifted it. Once we started seeing all the staff that started attending, we shifted it so that it was focused both on faculty and staff, and tried to, there were some workshops that were clearly more faculty focused, like TILT, and some others, but we really tried to make it so that it was going to be work for you, whether or not you were faculty or not. So
does that mean that there was one certificate, not two different
Correct.
tracks, for instance? Okay,
correct.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, but that was one of the reasons why we had such diverse offerings and partnered with so many people, because we wanted to make sure that what we had was relevant for anybody. So yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. I have a question. So how long do we have to finish this?
So the certificate, what we did is, because this was also right before COVID hit. And so that kind of put a wrench in things a little bit. And so we originally were going to do it just within the academic year, but we ended up extending it past the end of year into the summer, because a lot of people, they had started, but then COVID hit and it was a little bit confusing because we had so many cancellations of workshops that people would have normally attended face-to-face, and we didn't have solutions for them in an online format yet. And so we ended up actually finding online modules that were free at various places that we thought were of good enough quality to count toward the certificate, because we didn't have time to make stuff ourselves. And so we started finding stuff, and what we could do online, we did, but then we would supplement with these online modules that we found. And so we ended up extending it through the summer and even into that next semester. But originally the intent was just to do it for that academic year. And so you had the entire academic year to have all these offerings and to attend 4 events and submit that reflection.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mona, was it a single reflective exercise or was it a reflection per experience?
No, we ended up just doing a single reflection for the 4 different events. It was just going to be easier for us to just have one to review.
May I ask another question? This is Tanya again.
Absolutely, Tanya.
Okay, perhaps you covered this at the beginning, and if you did, forgive me, but what was your inspiration for having a certificate?
And so I did cover this a little bit in the beginning. We created a learning experience framework for students. And one of the learning experiences that we wanted to make sure was happening in the classroom was inclusivity. And so we decided that that was what we wanted to focus on for that academic year in terms of our programming and offerings, is inclusive classrooms or inclusive campus ended up because of staff involvement. And we wanted to incentivize, a way to incentivize faculty to attend those offerings that we were doing. We have our standard offerings, but then we were going to have these offerings in addition. And we wanted a way to sort of incentivize and recognize faculty and staff that ended up going through it. And so we thought, well, let's do a certificate. You know, people like being recognized with a certificate, and we've done certificate programs in the past, and we still continue to do that. And it seems to go well with the faculty and staff now as well. And so we thought, well, let's just try it and see what happens. And that's kind of generally our approach. We think we have a good idea. We're not sure. Let's just try it and see how it goes. And it ended up working out well. So.
I'm interested to see, just by maybe if you use your reaction button down at the bottom with a show of hands, have any of you attempted something like this inclusive programming on your college campuses? I see now that, well, I think the raised hand has been moved under participants tab and not under reactions. I apologize for that. Interesting. So this is fantastic information that I think a lot of us can think about and talk about on our campuses and see what we might be able to do moving forward. There are a few comments in the chat if you haven't looked. So Mona, can you or maybe Michael kind of just reemphasize the reasoning or the importance behind a certificate as compared to just your typical CTL programming?
Sure. There's one series that we do that we always have a certificate attached to. And then we have, and so that, well, actually 2 now with the inclusive certificate, but before that we had what we call the master class series. And it's just a way to kind of elevate a certain set of workshops and to recognize those that have gone through it. And in fact, with the master class series, not the inclusive certificate, although that could probably be included in promotion and tenure as well, but with the masterclass series, if you include that certificate within your portfolio, that is going to be helpful in terms of promotion and tenure. And so we really did kind of elevate those specific workshops and just make them a level of importance that is going to be meaningful to faculty, but also in the case of the inclusive certificate staff as well. So yeah, it's just a way to honor and recognize people putting in the time for that. You know, people don't have a lot of time, and you want to make sure to recognize and honor when people have spent time and energy on something. And so it's a way to do that.
I may just comment, Molly, as well. I think for faculty, as Mona shared, there's more and more pressure that if we do something, we have to show evidence of what we do. And while many faculty would be involved because we are passionate about the topic, it is extraordinarily helpful for us to be able to say, I was able to work towards something. And yes, as Mona shared, it's a certificate. It's just a little piece of paper, but it's a line on the vita, and it's evidence that we're doing something substantive and meaningful. And I think I can just speak for myself. It's nice to know that there's an appreciation for that continued professional development. So as a faculty member, I can say I'm grateful that they've offered this, because I think it speaks to the importance of this work and that this work is recognized.
Fantastic. Other questions for our presenters? Well, while you're thinking of questions, I have a few items of information for you. I really want to encourage you to go to the LEAP Indiana website and to bookmark that website. Keep it in your bookmarks list and check it frequently. We have lots of things coming up. In particular, there's a link to the Scholarly Institute that's happening this Friday. And so you may be able to participate in that session. You can get more information on the LEAP Indiana website. We partner with a lot of groups, and so that's one of the ways to get things done, as we've demonstrated by looking at Mona and Michael's programming. The partnership key is strong, and LEAP Indiana is no different. And so I believe that Friday's session is happening on, I forget which institution is promoting the Scholarly Teaching Symposium.
IUPUI.
Thank you. Thank you. Also, we have 2 more Fourth Mondays coffee hours coming up, and those I put into the chat for you as well. We have 2 faculty learning communities that are going to be announced soon. In fact, I think you can go ahead and register for some of them if you look for the information on the LEAP website. And also coming soon, a spring book read available for all Indiana member institutions. And that title, which will be announced soon, is going to be the book called Radical Hope, a Teaching Manifesto, which is authored by Kevin Gannon. And most of the CTL folks recognize that name. He's quite popular in that area. So lots of opportunities to get involved with LEAP Indiana this semester, next semester. And the cool thing is you get to see your colleagues from around the state. And so I personally really enjoy this opportunity because it just broadens our reach. It allows us to have a little different perspective to universities of different sizes, to colleges of different intentions. And so I just value this interaction quite a bit. Helps me to learn more and grow in my role, in my position. So Rachel, anything to add? Well, I want to give a heartfelt thanks to Mona and Michael both for sharing their fantastic program you have with us. I know that there are people in this audience who are going to take parts of this, chunks of this, and really kind of mold it into their own to help further this understanding of inclusion and what that means to us in 2021 and moving forward. So thank you, Mona. Thank you, Michael. We appreciate your time here today. And I hope to see all of you at a future session offered by LEAP Indiana. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you, Molly.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good day.